guys, what is up? It is James Penrose here, back again for my next video on yet another Simpsons episode review for you guys. This one's going to be coming from season 7 and is entitled Mother Simpson. Now, just to be honest with you guys, I've reviewed a lot of episodes in the past, none like this one. This one really hits home for me from an emotional and personal point of view. And you'll see throughout the story, and I'll explain through the story and all the scenes that went down, why it hits home, and it hit home for many that were watching. I mean, it was described as probably the saddest episode, and at that ending as well, where Homer's just sat there on the cat, which again we'll get to, one of the saddest scenes of all time in The Simpsons. That just goes to show you that they really did a good job in getting the story together and getting the fans emotionally invested into the story. So we're going to dive straight into this. It pretty much starts out one day on a Saturday. Mr. Burns gets his employees on a highway, just cleaning it, just to keep him active on a Saturday, because he wants to keep active on a Saturday. He can't waste his time, because it's all about him. And then that's where he sees Homer Simpson and Mr. Smith, and he's like, oh, well, stop pissing around, get to work. And that's where Homer fakes his death and throws a dummy of him on the waterfall and pretty much gets the dummy sucked into a turbine. And he gets away with it, or so he thought, because then all of a sudden, that's when the Springfield shopper produces the story that Homer is actually dead, and they fall for it hook, line and sinker. And that's where it hits all of Springfield, and a few of the people come to Marge and says, well, you know what, we can't tell you how sorry we are, because otherwise they read the newspaper. And Ned's like, well, you know what, I'm sorry, but Homer's passing away into death. And Marge is like, well, what the hell, this is ridiculous. She reads the newspaper and she's like, oh, well, that's a load of rubbish. He's right out back in the hammock. Obviously he wasn't, because he was still in the house at the time. But then when she goes back in, then that's where, and also a weird bit where Patty and Selma come on knocking on the door after everyone's brought flowers and blah 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 blah. Then Patty and Selma bring a tombstone with Homer J. Simpson engraved in the tombstone. And honestly, that even got me like, what the hell? That is fucked up, man. Like, you really hate him that much? Like, holy crap that you made a tombstone. And this gets Marge super pissed off, to the point where she's telling Homer, you need to go downtown first thing tomorrow and sort this out. Confirm you are alive. Because when you said that this wasn't a plan to fake your death, well, this was obviously just a lie. So hits the part where he goes to downtown, he confirms that he's alive, but he also acts quite suspicious. He has a look on the laptop or the computer and looks at his profile, and he's like, oh, well, how about this? This thing says my mum's still alive when she died when I was a kid. Also, he was told by Grandpa Simpson, which again we'll get to. And then he's like, well, you know what, you see that grave up there with the angel? That's me mother's grave. And the guy's like, well, you know what, maybe you should go up there. And that's where he goes up there, and funny enough, it actually turned out to be the wrong grave. It was actually the grave of Walt Whitman, who no one has a fuck who he or she is. And Homer was literally just going fuming, kicking the grave, and then that's where he's like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's the other grave, you know, the one that says Simpson. And that's where he finds his own grave of Homer J. Simpson, and he freaks out, falls into the grave, and then that's where you hit the moment where his mum appears out of nowhere, and at first she's like, oh, you awful man, get on my son's grave. And then Homer's like, well, I hate to rain on your parade, but this is my grave. Wait a minute, Mum? And then that's where, you know, it hits home that they have reunited after 27 years after it was confirmed in this episode. 27 years of just being gone, being separated. They finally reunited, and it was an awesome moment to see. And then that's where the part comes where Homer introduces her to Marge, Bart, Lisa, Maggie, and they just can't believe it. They're in all complete shock. Marge is all stuttering her words, doesn't know what to say. And Bart, there's a funny moment where Bart's like, well, after all the no-shows and all the big moments in my life that you missed, you owe me tons of presents and all that jazz. And he has the little calculator, counts it up, blah, blah, blah. You owe me $22,000. And Homer was not having that, strangles him, and that was a funny moment, of course. But then it has the part where she's bonding with everyone, including Lisa in particular, because, you know, they're talking about her grades and how she's an A student and all that. And then it all of a sudden hits a part where a police car is driving by the street, and as soon as Mona Simpson sees that, no sorry Bob, she's out of there, runs back inside, and Lisa's like, what just happened? And she knows something ain't right, so she talks to Bart in the basement so no one can hear, and she explains about, look, something ain't right. Every time we ask her where she's been, she just avoids the question, and she runs away whenever she sees a police car. And that's when it turns out that Bart was actually going through some of her stuff and finds, you know, different names of her on different credit cards, and Lisa's like, well, this could be the work of a con artist. And then it hits the part where Homer's like celebrating in joy that he's glad to have his mother back, and rightly so. I mean, you can't blame him. But Marge is like, well, you know what, I don't think you should get excited over the woman that abandoned you for 25 years. And Homer's like, well, first, it ain't 25 years, it's 27 years. And second, she had a very good reason. And Marge's like, well, what is that? And Homer's like, I don't know. I guess I was just a horrible son and all. And he's putting himself down pretty much, to be blunt. And Marge is, at this point, she's had enough. So is Bart and Lisa. They want to know what is going on and why it's took her this long to come to meet Homer. And it hits the part where she's on the sofa and she's trying to avoid it at first. She's like, oh, can't remember, sleeping. And then Bart's like, well, spill it, money, man, we're calling cops. And she wasn't having any of that. And then Lisa's like, all right, well, we'll call your husband Grandpa. And then that's when the jig was up. That was when she didn't really have no other choice but to tell the truth. And that's where it ends up having a flashback to the 60s where Homer's just a little toddler playing with his Operation game. A funny moment where he ended up getting electrocuted by the game, calling his mum. And that's where, you know, she's tucking him to bed at night, and it's a cute moment. And then when you see Abe, it's like, oh my god, how was it gone from that to this? Where he's just on his sofa with a beer in hand, watching Super Bowl. And it cut to the part where you ended up having Mr. Burns deliberately trying to infect Springfield with a germ disease that he thought was precious. Like, that's the one thing he wanted to him. Just, again, a scam just to deliberately harm everyone in Springfield. But everyone there was like, no, sorry, Bob. So what did they do? They planned a bomb, an antibiotic bomb in the, I can't remember what it was, the lab or whatever he had at the time, just to completely wipe out the germ scandal and this disease. And it worked, but not necessarily in the way she wanted it to work, because as all the hippies and all the people that were protesting were running away free, Mr. Burns, you know, ran into all of them and was on the floor down, hurt badly. And Mona's like, oh, you poor man, let me help you up. And Mr. Burns realizes that she was one of the perpetrators, and she was, in fact, the only one caught at the time. And Mr. Burns is like, well, you just made a very big mistake, and you're going to be going away for the rest of your life. And that's where it pretty much explains, after 27 years, this is why she's been gone. To be going on the run from the police, from something that, let's be honest, she pretty much was innocent of her, but she was the only one that was caught at the time because she was trying to help Mr. Burns up. But she recognised her too well, like really too well. And Homer was like, well, you know what, there's one thing I don't really understand. In all the years gone, how come you never tried to contact me? And it's because, like, well, she never really explained, but she's like, well, I did. I sent you care packages every week, and Homer doesn't really buy it. And then Mona's like, well, you know what, I'll come with you and I'll show you. And that's where they go to downtown to pick up some of the stuff that she claimed that she sent Homer throughout the years, the care packages every week. And little do they know that Mr. Burns was actually there in that exact moment. And he looks over and sees her. And at first he's like, oh, hold on a minute, I know that woman, but from where and what capacity? And that's pretty much where he sees a sign from 27 years ago where it pretty much says, it has a profile pic on there with wanted, and Mr. Burns is realising, oh, I've got her now, at last, I have got her. And he's pretty much explaining to, you know, his security, Mr. Smithers, that this is the woman that I definitely saw at the post office. Like, absolutely no way, this can't be her. Like, and again, Homer and Mona, like, they're completely oblivious to this. But then that's where it hit the part where Mr. Burns, Mr. Smithers, they're trying to investigate how old she really is up to now. Like, she's 25, 27 years older. And they ended up finding a tombstone, which, again, Patty and Selma, how ironic that they still had that tombstone of Homer J. Simpson. And that's where the jig was up. And they pretty much sent a tank and everyone, the FBI, all the lot, to go after Mona and Homer. Well, mostly Mona, but Homer was doing everything in his power, bless him, to pretty much stop this and keep his mother. Because, again, that's the story we're trying to tell here, up to this point, is that Homer does not want to lose her again. Because, let's be honest, if that were to happen, then that would just be, well, again, we'll get to that, because, again, it's emotional. So we had a funny moment where you ended up having Mr. Burns saying, oh, I've been waiting 25 years for this moment, and he's playing the serious music, and then all of a sudden it just goes, and Mr. Smith is like, oh, sorry, I must have changed the tape. Like, I was just like, wow, is that meant to be, because I was just dancing all over. I mean, I love that song personally, so I was just like, whatever. So they break into the house, and then that's when they realise that she is actually gone, and they've actually done a runner in time, thank God for that. And that's where they're at a gas station, and where they've arranged for a hippie to pick up Mona and do a runner. And honestly, this was the moment Homer was dreading, and at that moment kind of not accepting, but knowing it's going to happen, that she's going to leave again, once again go on the run. But they know not only it's for her good, but for his good as well, because the last thing that she wants is to be in jail for life and to never see Homer again. So she wants to keep that intact, that this isn't goodbye forever. It will always come a point where she'll always be thinking of you, and always have a point where she'll have to see you again. Like, it's a given, and we did see that in a later episode, which I might review, I don't know. But that's where the bus comes, and they hug it out, and, you know, it's all emotional, and Mona's like, well, no matter what happens, you have a mother who always loves you, is always thinking about you. And it's a funny point when she goes into the car, and all of a sudden she bashes her head on it, and she's like, don't! As Homer would do. Again, the resemblance is always, you know, it's cool. And then this is what was the saddest bit of it all, because as soon as you see the car drive away and Homer's waving away, and he just stands there in like sadness and grief and all that, and then it fades out and into the nighttime where he's just sat on top of his car and he's looking up to the stars, and that's where it ends there. And honestly, there's so many ways you can interpret that. For me personally, because you also see like a shooting star go by and Homer's like looking at that, for me, that was pretty much me going, yeah, he's wishing for his mum back at any point, any time, wishing that she'll come back any second now, which it didn't. It ended there, where he's just staring up, looking at the stars, taking it all in, just knowing that it's happened, you know, and that's where it ends. And honestly, I almost cried at that. I'm not even going to lie, guys. I almost cried at that a few times. Obviously, I've watched it 100 times, so I'm not going to, but it probably did get you as well, as much as it got me. So, obviously, again, there's a lot to go through, but this episode, it really hit home for me in a personal point of view. I'm sure it did for you guys as well that have watched it. If you somehow haven't watched it, go watch it. It will definitely hit you in the heart right here. So, other than that, guys, thank you guys for watching this episode review. Whatever you liked from The Simpsons, from this episode in particular, leave what you liked in the comments below. If there's anything you disliked somehow, then again, leave it in the comments below and tell me why. If there's anything I've missed, put in the comments and tell me why you like that as well. So other than that, guys, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you guys like this video, comment on this video, subscribe to my channel. I've got another video coming for you today. Episode 29 of Let's Play The Simpsons Hit and Run is actually going to be, for me, what I'm planning to be the penultimate episode of this series, and I can't wait to get started, so stay tuned for that. So all I can say is, I'm James Penrose. Peace out, my brothers!